Welcome back everyone, hope you're having an awesome day, and today we're going to be doing our in-depth character review for our Water Tribe Sokka, the one you get right at the start of the game. We're going to go through his kit, mastery, arts, relics, supports, everything you need to know to make the best out of your character. But before we start, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, really does help the channel out. Let me know this is the kind of stuff you want to see as well. And as always, I'm going to leave timestamps down below if you want to skip to anywhere in particular. They'll be down there below if you want to see the arts or the relics and stuff that I have on him. Then just pop down below there, they'll be there. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first off, here's a special element unit with the offense affinity. That's that little red fist icon there. On top of that, he's also a member of the Water Tribe, Team Avatar, and the South Pole, and also the Aang timeline. So if you need that for any events and stuff. Speaking of events, if you need to know everything else he can do for events and challenges in the future, he can also stun, giving himself accuracy up, speed up, and attack up. Couple of buffs there, very broad there, which is good. He can also reduce the cooldown on the enemy, which is something I feel like I should note. And he also can give himself an extra turn, which is really handy to know, especially if you're trying to beat any of those missions with 3 stars. Let me tell you, Water Tribe Sokka, if you get his Mastery 4, ooh, he's really good for that. In terms of unlocking him and leveling him up, you're going to unlock him at the start of the game, much like your Mind Aang and your defense Katara. You're going to also get this offense Sokka. That's going to round out your starting team and let you start playing the game, obviously. To level up his skill level, as you summon on banners, you have a chance of getting a 4-star skill coin, and that'll have the offense Sokka variant on there. You can use that to level up his skill, which is really handy to have, especially once you get into skill level 6. Guaranteed attack up, which is really nice. We'll get to that in a second. And for his Ascension Materials, he requires incense, the offense meditation beads, the special element stuff, so anything like the metal plates, the wooden boards, the rope, all that stuff. That'll help level him up as well. And then the Water Tribe Balance Talisman, which is this little like ice jug, I don't know what you'd really call it, that's in the boss battle store. If you like, here are all the separate levels. Pause the video at any point if you need to know that. Now we're going to go through his kit and his mastery. We'll go through his basic kit first and then cover his mastery at the end. So his basic attack, Whack-a-Pow. Deal 2 hits of precision damage to one enemy and a 35% chance to give himself increased attack for 1 turn at the end of the attack. So precision damage, a couple of cool things here. Firstly, he's going to do 2 hits. It'll break through skill nullifier. If they have skill nullifier, they usually dodge a hit, but because it's 2 hits, first hit will break the skill nullifier. Second's going to basically hit through and hit the enemy. Very good at dealing that damage. Very good offense unit, especially for a beginner one. On top of that, he's going to give himself increased accuracy for 1 turn, so that'll let him land any debuffs he needs to do. And also, if they only have 1 buff active on the enemy, you'll actually remove 1 buff off them, which is really nice. If they start trying to, build up their buffs or anything, knock them out. It's fine. Don't worry. Sokka's got you covered. And on top of that, he's also got a chance to increase his attack, which is really nice. He's an offense unit. He should be dealing damage, so anything that increases attack is a welcome sight. Next up is his advanced skill, Stunning Clonkathon, cooldown of 2 turns. Tosses his Boomerang to deal strike damage to 1 enemy. The Boomerang will then reflect and deal additional penetrating damage to a random enemy. So it'll hit 1, hit the unit you target, and then reflect off to hit someone else, with a 50% chance to stun the last enemy hit. So a lot to break down here. So first off, strike damage is an increased chance of it being a crit. This is not crit rate up. I used to think that's what it was. It's just like an increased chance that you're going to crit them, which is really nice. On top of that, it also can reflect and stun, which is really cool. The target will become incapacitated, which means they can't, attack, gain any buffs. They essentially lose a turn, which is really handy to kind of control the enemy there. And it also will increase the chance of them receiving a crushing hit. There are some units that have an effect when they get hit with a crushing hit. For example, Richtog, when he goes into his counter stance, when you hit him with this and he gets hit with a crushing hit, he will lose that counter stance. So it's a good thing to just kind of keep an eye on if you need to control the enemy, especially someone like Richtog, who you'll see a lot of. And lastly, his passive ability, Son of Hakoda, permanently increase attack and reduce damage taken by 10% when your current health reaches the 75%, 50%, or 25% threshold. So once he hits any of those health thresholds, he's going to gain a passive damage reduction and a passive increase to his attack. Now, I will say this. If you hold on to it and you have all the stuff come off on the side, it says attack up, increase attack by 50%. I think that's because it has increase attack as highlighted. I have tested this multiple times. The increase attack is 10% for the purposes of this passive. So when he hits 75%, it's 10%. It's not a 50% increase. The attack up on his basic is a buff. That's 50%. But because I think this is highlighted, I just want to really emphasize it is 10% increase on his passive ability one. So just keep that in mind. It's not going to be a crazy increase in attack, all right? And now moving on to his mastery, it's on his passive ability, the Son of Hakoda. Mastery level 2, gain increased speed buff for 2 turns when you gain the increased attack buff. So whenever he does his basic attack, he has a chance to give himself attack up. When he does that, he's also going to gain speed up, which is really handy. Gets him into the fight a little bit faster as well. You can also kind of cheese it with like alarm horn and stuff like that to give attack up. But he gives it to himself on his basic. It's not that hard to get. Mastery level 3, increase the skill cooldown of the enemy by 1 turn if your attack lands as a critical strike once every other turn. So once every other turn, regardless if it's your basic or your advanced, remember his advanced has a higher crit strike chance basically. You have a chance to increase the skill cooldown, you know, stop your Moonslayer Xiao doing his big ability there. Or Juro, he constantly reduces his cooldown, but you could maybe up it just before he goes, which would be really nice. Just a good way of controlling the enemy, which is really cool there. And then Mastery level 4, this is where we see Sokka's power just double. This is a crazy Mastery level 4. Gain an extra turn when an enemy is defeated on your turn. Now, I've made multiple videos on this, talking about how if you have this, you need to be using it. Very good way at getting the star requirements for a lot of activities, because extra turns don't count as turns. So if you start knocking out people left, right, and center, you're going to be taking a lot of extra turns, which is in turn going to let you do all those events really easy. So then you can just 3-star them and then use your skip tickets to farm them instead of having to play it all the time. Very, very handy. Also really good if you're in arena. A couple of times where I've knocked out a unit with this, and yeah, especially because he gives himself attack up as well. And if you build him with a certain art set, he basically will get to the point where he'll get that 30% increase. Then he'll have attack up as well. 80% increase in attack. He's going to have high attack anyway. Oh, Nelly. You're going to be knocking out everyone left, right, and center. It's really nice to see. Now that we've gone through his kit and that, we know how we want to build him. And for like an entry-level art set, I like to build him with a 4 War 2 Destruction set. The War set just really pumps up his attack potential. Make sure that we get that, you know, high damage output, which is really nice. And then the Destruction set just increases that crit damage a bit. Because his advanced skill has a higher chance of critting anyway, throwing on a little bit of extra crit damage I find is never too bad. If you want to utilize a bit more control, you could throw a crit rate set on, so you can reduce that skill cooldown as well. On his Mastery level 3. I feel like this is a really good entry level kind of art set there. The extra attack on the secondaries is never too bad as well if you can get those. A little bit of resistance just to shrug off stuns and any debuffs, but you also don't want to neglect his accuracy. The stun will need to go through an accuracy resistance check, so make sure you build a little bit of extra accuracy there, so that when you do your advanced skill, you can stun the enemy, which is really handy. In terms of advanced sets that you could be running, if you have the Deserter set, it's never a bad idea. The increased attack is nice, and on top of that, when your health falls below 25%, you're going to vanish for 2 turns, which is going to basically make it so that you can't be hit, unless I can remove states, obviously, but you can't be hit by most attacks. And the cool thing about that, remember on his passive, he's going to gain increased stacking attack. You'll get that 30% attack, protect himself, and then when he comes out swinging, he's going to do a lot of damage, which is really good, especially if you have his Mastery 4. Start getting that train rolling. And another quick shout out is going to be the Thunder set. You will do additional penetrating damage on his advanced skill anyway when it reflects off, but just getting this as well is also never a bad idea. Whenever you land a crit, you're going to deal extra penetrating damage to all enemies, so everyone will be hit by this. A lot of damage output and potential there. In terms of supports, Samurai Appa is never a bad idea. High health there just keeps him in the fight a little bit longer, and the increased attack is going to be super helpful. If you don't have him, you could run the Lion Vulture. Very high attack there as well, and it's for special units. Pretty easy to get as well. Same with the Owl Wolf, for the same reason. High attack, high health. Unagi has a high attack as well, and even Master Momo if you have any of those. Anything that increases attack is going to be very good for him. For Relics, we're going to do like a top 3, and then I'm going to do some honorable mentions. So first one is going to be Tian Hai's Hope. Gain an increase in turn bar by 15%, and heal yourself for a percentage of your max health whenever you take damage. 2 turn cooldown, 3 times a battle. So the cool thing about this is you don't have to build so much speed on him. If he gets hit, he's going to just boost his turn bar up, get to the fight a little bit earlier. If you throw out a basic, you get speed up, or you could throw out a stun, and then it lets you kind of start getting the ball rolling, which is going to be really handy. Next up is going to be the Whale Tooth Blade, which is a very easy relic to get. And the cool thing about that is when you use your advanced skill, you'll have a chance to basically ignore 15% of the enemy's defense stat. So if they have a high defense, won't matter, just ignore 15% of it. Really good at punching through enemies if they have high defense or anything like that. And on top of that, it could stun them as well, which is always handy. I find this is really good at making sure you can start getting those extra turns, start knocking out fools left, right, and center. It's probably one of my favorite relics I like to run on him, honestly. And for number 3, we're going to do the Lover's Guardian. Gain a barrier for 1 turn when the caster is used in a combo. Damage dealt increased by 15% while the barrier is active. 1 turn cooldown for the damage increase effect, obviously. So the cool thing about that is that it'll defend him a little bit more. Barrier is a 25% reduction in damage that you take. On top of that, you're going to be getting damage reduction from his passive. Very good at keeping him alive and in the battle. But really, the thing here is that when he gets that barrier, he's also going to get a damage increase, which is really good. Again, he's an offense unit. You should be dealing damage with him. So getting that extra damage buff while you're also protecting yourself is really handy for keeping him in the fight. And then again, getting the ball rolling, which is what you kind of want to do with him. In terms of honorable mentions, if you don't have any of those, risky cargo isn't too bad either. If you receive a weak hit, so someone hits you and you get a weak hit, you'll gain lifesteal for 2 turns, which is good at making sure that you can stay alive a little bit longer in the fight. Again, keep him in the fight so he can get the ball rolling. Do I need to say it again, really? And really, I'm throwing this in here because I used it in the free-to-play boss battle guide. The Southern Night Lantern. Decrease any damage you receive from critical hits. I find that if you are fighting a crit-heavy team, you can throw this on. It actually will mitigate a lot of the damage that they send out at you. Granted, it's not like the best relic out there, but if you find that you're getting hit a lot and you kind of need something to counter crits, Southern Night Lantern actually does work out pretty well. And I did use it in the free-to-play guide and it was pretty fun. In terms of best friends for Sokka, anyone from Team Avatar is never a bad idea. If you have the upper support, increasing the health is always nice. Especially your Dragon Dancer Zuko, Earth Kingdom Toph, and Bending Master Katara has a lot of Team Avatar passives that can work well with each other. Especially your Dragon Dancer Zuko reducing any damage and increasing damage you deal is really nice to have on the team there. On top of that, anyone for the front line that can kind of hold their own. Bo Chin is probably your top pick. Increases the damage dealt on his Mastery 2, which is good at making sure that you can punch through and do a lot of damage with your Sokka. But Aro, Zhong Zhong, Telerichtul, Kiwok, anyone that can hold their own in the front line and keep your back line secure is always a good pick. And of course, we have our Yue and Zhuro down the bottom there. Zhuro is going to increase your max health, which is always nice. And Yue is really handy if Sokka gets knocked out early. She gets knocked out, she can revive him and make sure that you can punish them for knocking out your girlfriend. In terms of counter units for Sokka, you've got to watch out for Zhuro. He does increase the health of all his allies. And when he does that, obviously it's going to be harder for you to start knocking out units with your attacks to start getting those extra turns. So Zhuro increasing health is something to be wary of, as well as the fact that he's immune to negative effects, like Azula as well. Can't be stunned by any of your attacks, so you won't be able to lock them down when that happens. Kelsang is here for that reason as well. He can give everyone Guardian Stance, which means that they're immune to debuffs, which means they're immune to things like stun, for example, which is really annoying. And I've got the Warden here. He can spread invincibility, which is annoying. But on top of that, he also reduces the crit damage of all of the enemies and will increase the defense of all of his allies. So it's going to make it much harder for you to start A, dealing damage, and B, getting those extra turns out and rolling. Peace Arrow I just found with the Reflect Shield was just too much. You know, you hit him, you'll start getting some damage back on you, and it could knock you out, which is something you got to watch out for. And then Ronin Zuko I just found would stay alive a little bit too long and then start hitting Sokka left, right, and center with some Fireblade, and then you're in real trouble. And then Earth Kingdom Toph, Blue Spirit, Fire Nation Zuko, and Tagaka, pretty much anyone that has a high AoE capability, they're able to break through and hit Sokka in the back line, knock him out pretty early, especially if you don't have that Deserter set, or build him with a little bit of extra survivability. For the boss battles, you can use him in either the Invader Zuko or the Boomy boss battle. For the Invader Zuko one, he's actually pretty good. His basic attack is going to increase his attack, which is handy, and on top of that, his advanced skill has a chance to stun. So if you have your Mind Aim, for example, you basically can lock down Invader Zuko. He can't break, he can't hit you, he can't do anything, and you're able to get there. Just watch out if he does do his AoE. Will probably knock out your Sokka, especially if you don't have him built for survivability or have that Deserter set on him. For the Boomy boss fight, you can stun Flopsy and Boomy. You just got to watch out. Boomy has that immunity for the first couple turns of battle. He can buff himself with his attack up. Again, more damage output is always nice. And if you call him to assist, he can inflict a special element, which is like a heal block that you can throw on Boomy. Make sure that he can't regen himself back to full health because he has a pretty high health. All in all, he's a really good free-to-play friendly damage dealer that's able to go on Modern Warfare 2 style kill streaks. And on top of that, he can stun enemies, which is kind of crazy. The fact that he can control the enemy and also just knock them out, which is really handy. The only problem he has would be his survivability. He is a little bit squishy, but if you can get past that, you can almost get past anything. I will quickly just leave a link up the top for one of the event quests we did, where we basically broke through and beat everything in like 4 turns or something like that, because he was constantly taking those extra turns. But yeah, thank you all for watching. Hope that helped. Let me know down below if I've missed anything or any of your personal recommendations for builds and stuff. And like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.